Hello and welcome to Difficult Childhood. This is the podcast where we talk about what it was like growing up as Jehovah's Witnesses, and of course, breaking free and how we're able to build better lives outside of the cult. Now, you'll notice the format is a little different. It's not just me here today, though I promise I will have a co-host. But unfortunately, Fallon and her family have had a loss. Her mother-in-law has passed away. So please join me in sending love and condolences to them, especially her husband, Keith. So a tough time for their family. But this week, what I thought we would discuss is because Memorial season just happened. I don't know about you, but a lot of ex-JW friends of mine have had family members reach out to them. And particularly, I think more so with the upcoming convention invitation season that's coming up. You know how every year, the special convention, they invite everybody. And of course, it's just them trying to get us to come back to be reindoctrinated. But I thought we'd kind of take apart a letter that I received from my uncle. And now I think he sent me this letter with the best motivations. He has been one of Jehovah's Witnesses for decades, since I believe the 70s. He has been an elder for, I'm pretty sure, more than 30 years. And he's sending this letter with only the best intentions. And I think that's probably the biggest trap, is that when we have genuine, heartfelt Jehovah's Witness relatives who normally would never speak to us, send us a pleading for us to return. And but my co-host, Rebecca, who I also have been friends with for years, her and I are going to sit down and take apart this letter and kind of analyze what these arguments are. And then, if you don't mind, maybe you can share what arguments you've heard from your family members, why you should return to Jehovah, as they say. So here we go. Oh, and if you don't mind, I know every channel says this, but if you can like and subscribe and share, it really teaches the YouTube algorithm to share us with more people. It's kind of a snowball effect, and we're just trying to grow this small channel. Just appreciate your support and your help in that way. Okay, here we go. My co-host is someone I've also known for a long time. I've actually known her and been friends with her since 2003, and that is Rebecca. Rebecca,
hello.
Thank you very much for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I appreciate it. We really wanted to get your perspective on what we're talking about this week. It's kind of the season for people inviting people to Memorial just happened. The convention's coming up. So with those new arrangements from the governing body update, you can talk to the disfellowshipped, although probably not me. I'm an apostate.
Yeah, I was surprised my mom didn't invite me.
You think she's branded you apostate by now?
That's the only thing I can figure.
Yeah.
She was desperate to bring me back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember she did get to a point where she just gave up on her other children as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I received some time ago a letter from my uncle, and I want to preface this with, I am not putting him down in this letter. In fact, very much the opposite. He is a really loving and kind person.
Love that guy.
He's a sweet guy. He's really he's an intelligent man. But he has been in the organization so long that he uses a lot of the classic arguments that we're thinking maybe you guys will have heard. Arguments for why to return to Jehovah, as they say. And we want to go through a few of these and also get your thoughts and get your comments on what arguments have Jehovah's Witnesses used to try to get you to come back. And in fact, I've heard a lot of from a friend of mine, Charlotte, a lot of arguments that she's heard from, because she's very fresh out, and they're still really pelting her with those. Those do taper off, but
we should do some of my mom's letters.
Yes, we should. I'd love that. So basically, I'm going into this, and this is, I want to share this because he's sharing it with such, and I know you have his letter up there too.
Yep.
He's sharing these arguments with me in such a really caring way. He really wants what's best for me. But we want to maybe take these apart and see, where their holes were. The first one he uses is, life in this system of things is really unfair. There's a sentence that's dripping with indoctrination. And then he basically says, things went bad for you. You went through a divorce. Life was really hard. And a lot of people, including my dad, said, I just blamed Jehovah, and that's why I left. What do you think about? What do you make of that argument?
I got the same thing. I can't imagine what you're going through. I know you're hurting, but we can't blame Jehovah. He's the only one we can count on.
Yeah.
Yeah, same thing. I have pages of it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. And it strikes me as a really an absurd thing to say to somebody. Going through
Oh,
a
yes.
breakup, no matter how long you were together, isn't the worst thing that could happen. It's
No.
not fun.
No.
But I mean, what this is saying is basically that I watch the news and I see children die of bone cancer,
Exactly.
and I see holocausts happen.
Mm-hmm.
I see people in concentration camps.
That's all fine.
No problem.
But I got a divorce, so
Well, I
I'm
got a
out.
heart boo-boo. Oh no.
Just ridiculous.
To think that much of myself.
It's so arrogant and so insulting for her to think that I'm that arrogant. It's just layers of ridiculous.
Yeah. And at this time, it might make sense to say how we know each other. We dated briefly in 2003.
Briefly.
Briefly.
For
Well,
like, what, a year?
I think like a year, maybe close to 18 months. But
Yeah.
then because we were Jehovah's Witnesses, we, had to get married immediately. And that was to each other.
It sure was.
Yeah. And even though, I mean, I can't really speak for you. Divorce is painful for both parties.
It sucks. Yeah.
Even when it was like two people who were like, okay, let's split our stuff. Let's not we don't have children.
Just a bulldog.
Just a bulldog.
Yeah.
I got him.
Yeah, you're good. I got the coffee table.
I'm regretting that. He's like $800 a month to keep alive now. He's old. It's it's a hard process to go through. It seems pretty silly to say that's the reason you're leaving God.
Yeah. 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 It really is.
It is, yeah. And he also says it in very kind terms here, like, I don't understand the pain and hurt you've been feeling. And by the way, he's such a nice guy. He's writing me this letter after his wife has died. This is within 4 months of his wife dying, because I went and visited his wife, my aunt, and she was one of my favorite people, and I got to talk to her before she passed away. So that was really,
she was precious.
Such a nice soul. I loved her.
And smart.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So smart.
Yeah. And indoctrinated, but also still a little bit grain of salty every once in a while. You can pick it up. Yeah, well, with the way she took the truth.
Yes.
So, I mean, I know he's just saying this in such a loving way. Don't get discouraged, because with Jehovah's help, we can endure it until the new system, is what he says. But again, that first argument that we always hear is, you left Jehovah because you're hurt. Maybe another JW hurt your feelings, or you went through a life-changing event.
A stumbling block.
A stumbling block, yeah. And that's really an absurd argument, particularly insulting to people who left like you and I did, because conscientious objectors. Why would you say the reason is that you left?
That's hard. I think there were a lot of things that I questioned over the years that just really, really nagged me. Gosh, you learn to suppress those, and cognitive dissonance.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Because it's too uncomfortable otherwise. It's too uncomfortable. So you learn to like push those away and really like reinforce the things that are comfortable and that are safe.
Yeah.
And I knew what I stood to lose if I did leave. So it took me a long time to build up the wherewithal and kind of the escape hatch to survive it, because it was hard.
Yeah.
It was hard. But I do remember we would be going to meetings like at the height of it, in the throes of this kind of waking up process, I guess. We would be at meetings and they would be regurgitating whatever thing they always did. Yeah. And I would just be tuned out, like deep diving into some other subject, using their materials and everything, using
I remember that.
Yeah, I'd be on my phone using the insight books and whatever, and just like trying to get clarity on like something I found interesting or something that I didn't know quite what our stance was, or what, like, I think one time I was studying predestination, like,
Yeah.
what do we think about that? And I would just do a deep dive, and the more I did it, the less it made sense. And finally, I literally woke up one morning in Greece on a boat,
Yeah.
and I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yep.
And there was like a visceral body response. Remember, I was vomiting.
Yeah.
I was vomiting. It was just such an intense doneness.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was
That's
weird.
that's interesting. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yes.
So, the blaming of Jehovah is obviously, something that they often think is what's happened.
Mm-hmm.
But then, whenever someone is trying to encourage us to return, I notice um, kind of a push to apply scriptures that don't have anything to do with that.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, one of his favorite go-to scriptures is Psalm 119, 165. And again, this is something that all Jehovah's Witnesses are taught to do. Apply scriptures that sound right for your situation, but aren't talking about that at all.
Yeah.
So Psalm 119, 165 is, if you believe when it was written, is either a song or a poem written 2,400 years ago. And it says, abundant peace belongs to those who love your law. Nothing can make them stumble. Now, that's supposed to be applied to me
Yeah. By
because,
some psalmists,
yeah,
and who had no conception of what life now would look like. Yeah, it's for sure. It's for sure about you. And of course, you can draw comfort from poetry or prose or whatever,
sure.
allegory, whatever. You can draw some meaning.
But Faulkner isn't necessarily talking about me.
Right.
So,
Again, just the height of arrogance to think that
yeah,
we matter that much.
yeah.
I find.
Okay, so I was editing here and I realized that Rebecca and I were talking off camera for part of the point that we made here, and we wanted to make sure that that got included. I was talking to her on the phone today because we recorded this a couple days ago. Anyway, here it says at Psalm 119, 165, we already said it, abundant peace belongs to those who will love your law. Nothing can make them stumble. Well, my uncle is using this scripture to say that if I love God's law, then I will do better. And the only way to love God's law is to attend the meetings and rejoin the organization of Jehovah's Witnesses. Well, this scripture says that nowhere, and does not anywhere in the Bible indicate that it is the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses or Jehovah's Witnesses in any way that truly represent God's interests. These are the same governing body members that have done 2 updates this year. Okay, yes to beards now. That's fine. Oh, and girls, you can wear some pants now. That's fine too. They keep changing the rules even though no new scriptures have come out. They're clearly making this stuff up. And then they turn around and instruct their followers, Jehovah's Witnesses, to use scriptures that have nothing to do with bending the knee to the governing body. But they use those scriptures for just that purpose, to get people to come back and come back under their control. Okay, so anyway, back to our conversation.
And then the next one, he says, I know this line of reasoning seems very simple, and that's because it's coming from a simple-minded man. Incorrect. He's not a dumb man.
Mm-mm.
You can't be a dumb man and have to do all the stuff it takes to run a congregation and be an elder for over 30 years.
No.
You can't be a dumb man or simple-minded and run your own business and handle, taxes and insurance and rules and skill. He works in a skilled profession. You cannot be a dumb person doing all that stuff.
Nope.
But the organization wants all of them to think that they are dumb. And therefore, obviously, governing body can just walk over all. That's prime people.
Mm-hmm.
Control.
Yep. And it's no coincidence they call them sheep-like.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know the Bible does say that too, but they really capitalize on that, and
more than others, I think.
Mm-hmm. And they want the docile, teachable, leadable, obedient.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So that kind of stuck out to me, and that's a shame because such a person who has so much value and is not simple-minded has been convinced that he has by
Mm-hmm.
the decades of indoctrination.
Mm-hmm.
Just rough.
And that's another thing I remember. when I was really, really starting to question things, or allowing myself to, because I always did, but I was allowing myself to, and I was just having these internal struggles, and I would be like, who do you think you are? Who do you think you are? You
Talking
need
to yourself.
talking to myself.
Oh.
You need to be humble. You need to be teachable. All these things that you're taught are
Like virtuous.
virtuous. Yeah, exactly. Yes, and all of the teachings are so just enshrined and untouchable, and like, how dare you, even though they can change them at whim, but like, it was just, they want you to feel simple. They want you to feel or they do infantilize you. I don't know if they want you to feel that way, but like, they're the only ones that have the answer. But at the same time,
Yeah.
it's a weird combination of simple-minded, as he says, but also secretly superior.
Yeah.
And because
I'm special. I
know.
have the answer.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard the same person say, worldly people are so stupid.
Mm-hmm.
So there is underneath that, even though I think he would probably regret those words, because you're supposed to be kind to the people you're
What
going
do you
out.
expect? He's worldly.
Exactly. Very much that attitude. And my dad has that attitude too.
Yes.
So much.
So does my mom. Yeah.
And so I know you're looking at the letter there too.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that one where they've convinced him that he's simple-minded. But then there's another one here where they ask the question, he asked the question, he says, one of my favorite scriptures I found at Mark 10:30, where Jesus said his followers would gain a large family, having brothers and sisters 100-fold in this system of things. Now, what other organization of group or people have the closeness of brotherhood separated from the disunity and strife from this system of things? I gotta say, a lot of people and organizations, families and organizations, have the unity that Jehovah's Witnesses supposedly have.
Honestly. Yep.
Claim to have. I don't think they have it. You go into any congregation, there is always discord.
Gosh.
Remember their congregation. In that congregation where he is from, there is so much disunity.
Yes, I remember that.
Different families, who there was constant bickering over if one's family, the son of one family got disfellowshipped, and then they would resent that the other part of the elders, and that it was just a big
Who was pioneering
mess.
and who was an elder, and
I remember arguments breaking out in that Kingdom Hall. And of course, Jehovah's Witnesses always say, well, that's just imperfection of humans. Well, actually, no, you're claiming that you're perfectly united.
So many cliques, and so many people are being excluded. And
I think the Mormons are probably doing a better job of if that's the standard, they do a real good job. And they're another high control cult. I'm not pro-Mormon.
Right. And the problem I have with this particular sentence is, what other organization or group of people have the closeness of a brotherhood, separated from the disunity and strife of this system of things? He sets up a false dichotomy. It's either one or the other. There's nothing in between. You can't possibly leave this and have find unity or love or closeness. And that's just inherently wrong. It's just wrong.
And now I find I have a group of probably 15 very close friends. It's much more meaningful because I don't have to spread throughout like 100-person congregation, and I can and real friendships.
And they're there for you,
Uh-huh.
not because you happen to believe the same thing and you happen to attend the same. They're there for you.
We disagree on things. Fallon and I disagree on things, and I know my friend Mike and I, we disagree on things politically. We agree on a lot of things religiously, but politically we're very, very different. But we're friends.
Yep.
And that's okay.
It's okay to have different thoughts.
Yeah, how much of value is that unity of brotherhood when you it demands that you think the same, agree with me, or I won't talk to you.
And I remember thinking that that's how it would be when I left, and being surprised over and over again at how kind people are on the whole, how and how many wonderful families there are. better than ones better than ones that were in congregations I went to.
Absolutely. And I thought that I was constantly convinced that I would not have the same quality of friends. And I am continually grateful that I have even better quality of friends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just so much better. And that us and them thing always makes me think of that Pink Floyd song that starts us and them.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the tune exactly. And it makes me think of it because that is one of his favorite bands.
Aww.
Was Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
And it is that us and them thinking is just so damaging.
Mm-hmm. It's dangerous. That in-group thinking, it doesn't allow for empathy. It doesn't allow for goodwill. It's just wrong, bad, dangerous, and just fear and no room for growth.
Yeah.
No room for
And much like political cults, which exist on both ends, I'm not saying that, one side or the other. Religious cults do the exact same thing. It's disgusting and horrible for humans. There was one other note here. I've forgotten where it went. You have to obey Jehovah's laws because that creates unity. And he says, because humans are influenced by greed, they are ruining the environment. Yeah, that's true. There are some things that need to change there. Greed has also caused people to disregard God's moral laws. And the results are clear, a total breakdown in human society.
Right.
Completely ignoring how, 300 years ago, everybody was dying of horrible diseases. 200, 100 years ago. Antibiotics have solved so many problems. World War II, World War I, those aren't going on now. We figured out how to solve things. Yeah, we're still having wars, but not at that level.
No.
It's getting better.
I'd much rather live now. And also, if you take the Bible at face value and you go look at Israelite times, they're wandering the desert, that sucked, and God was supposedly right there.
Yeah, that would have sucked.
I'd much rather be living now with all the stuff that comes with it.
Oh, absolutely. It's a much better time to live. Well, anyway, that was kind of some of the things I want to talk about here. Is from this letter, these classic arguments that are used to try to lure people back in, as if Jehovah's Witnesses have this monopoly on unity, or as if their life is actually better. It's just not.
It sure is not.
My main objection to this, to what has been done to this very kind man, is that the organization has broken down his confidence in his own intelligence.
It's sad.
It's stolen a part of him.
And it makes him enjoy his life less because he's like, yeah, it sucks now, head down, just keep going with this carrot dangling. He's not enjoying his life now. No. Hoping for a better one to come.
And even if a better one was to come, don't you think God would want you to enjoy that?
Yeah.
He's not.
Yep.
Okay, well, thank you very much for listening to this. If you are getting invitations from other Jehovah's Witnesses who want to kind of re-indoctrinate you, feel free to reach out and let us know what kind of arguments they're using. And then when others can discuss, see if they've run into it as well. And perhaps we or somebody else in the comment threads can kind of help deconstruct that argument. And of course, these aren't real hard to deconstruct, but when you're closer to the organization and when you're just coming out, they sure were for me. It was absolutely very difficult to take that apart.
And it's all they have because they're not allowed to think critically. It's all they have. I remember using these on my scientist brother, and he was like, do you see how that's facile?
Yeah.
It's like, no, I don't. I didn't. Now I do.